Hello, my name's Jade and today we will be discussing The Becoming of Noah Shaw by Michelle Hodkin. This is the first book in a spin-off trilogy, I believe. Spinning off from the Mara Dyer trilogy, I have videos on all three of these, two actually on the evolution of Mara Dyer. I really enjoyed these, and so if you want to know more about them, maybe you should go check those out. As you can probably tell from the title, we follow Noah Shaw. We're reading from his perspective, so it definitely has a different feeling to it. The writing style and the thought processes are very different from Mara's. He's a lot more blunt, I think, and his humor is different. I didn't like this one as much as I liked the original trilogy books, I think, because it was a lot slower. Not a ton happened, and I think it might be because of the fact that we're trying to come to terms with what happened in the last book of the trilogy. We're still a little bit fragile. The first trilogy ended and we had all this fallout at the end, and we've not really put it all back together yet. So that might have something to do with the slowness. I don't know, it's just a lot of us sitting around kind of looking at things but kind of not really. It's also significantly shorter than the other ones, and that maybe also will have something to do with it because we didn't have enough space. It feels like this could have been the opening third of a book. Obviously I imagine it would be too big a book to actually be able to do that, and it does feel like a complete story. I'm worried that the other two are gonna be like this. I'm hoping things will start to happen now. Because of that, because of the plot issues I had with it, I didn't like it as much as the other ones, because the other ones we were always learning new things and going on different tasks to try and figure out things, and just things were always happening in general. There's more danger. Noah starts seeing these suicides of people like them. It's weird and kind of out of place. If I were to give it a rating, I'd guess I would give it like a 7.5. I still enjoyed it because I love these characters and I love this world that she's set up. I'm worried that the ending of the original trilogy would be better than how this is going to end up. This is just going to end up more sad and depressing than the original one did. If you like the original books, if you like the characters, if you like the world, they are worth the read, I think. But if you weren't obsessed with the first trilogy, then you're probably not going to love this one. It's only the first book. It's too soon to tell. I don't know how I feel about these covers yet. They're kind of playing off, I think, of the real people in the first ones, but we can see more of these people than we can of the ones on the Mara Dyer books, but then they're more obscure because their like faces are darkened out. I love the kind of embers going up, and I love the kind of color tone, the darkness of them. I think they suit Noah's character very well. I don't like the color scheme of this one very much. They're alright. They're better than they could have been, I think. So that is everything for the non-spoilery section. If you've yet to read The Becoming of Noah Shaw, get how it's like The Becoming of Noah Shaw, where the first book in the other trilogy was The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. This is like more hopeful sounding. Does it match the tone? Don't know. If you've yet to read The Becoming of Noah Shaw, I recommend you leave now because I'm going to spoil everything that happens in this book. Bye if you've yet to read The Becoming of Noah Shaw. The letters in this one were really interesting because obviously we know everything that happened. We know all of the backstory that he's reading about essentially, but Noah doesn't know this stuff. She never told him, and I didn't know she didn't tell him until he kind of mentioned it later on in the book. She didn't tell him a lot. I don't like that. I feel like if nothing else you should communicate these things with other people because we're trying to figure out what's going on essentially, but I don't think she cares necessarily what's going on. She's just accepted it. Mara just really worried me throughout this whole book. She seems so different when you're not in her head. It didn't feel like Mara to me, and I don't know if it's just because she's changed so much or it's because we're not seeing her thought processes. It was weird. This whole time I was just so worried about her. The end of Retribution, I kept banging on about how she's going down a dark place, and I don't feel okay with this, and I was worried that Noah would just see past it. Turns out he had no idea because she didn't tell him any of it. I was assuming they would like catch each other up a bit, but because it's a sore subject, they don't talk about it. The stress. Anyway, the letters. So it was really interesting because we knew what was going on, so it was nice to kind of have that continuation to the past. Obviously, come the end, it's pretty important. I particularly liked learning more about his mother. In the beginning, Noah mentions that he tried to heal his grandfather after he had a stroke and he couldn't do it, and it was like, never figured out why. It is confirmed that Noah can't heal people with gifts. I must have messed up somewhere and thought he healed Mara. Fleshed out that people with powers can't affect other people with powers. So when he said he couldn't heal his grandfather and he couldn't figure out why, But maybe he has the gene and he had some kind of powers, maybe. Because then when we go back to his mother, and his mother, she sounded like she had a gift as well, which I didn't know, that people just are instantly attracted to her. She's just so alluring. But it didn't work on his parents because they're gifted. They must be. David talked about how David and his mother, they were particularly chosen because they had the gene and they were both strong carriers of the gene. So it makes sense for both of their parents to have also had the gene. That's the only logical explanation to me. I'm assuming it's being set up for more to come. So I'm looking forward to delving into that. We have Sam, who hangs himself in the beginning. Hearing Mara rattle off what like the caretaker guy had said about this long history about the great-grandfather Undertaker, great-great-great-grandson of the Undertaker, and there was this whole history, and I was just completely lost. So I was there thinking, well, is this connected in some way to his family? Like, I'm assuming that's the road we're going down. And I started getting excited at that point, because I was wondering, like, is this some kind of, like, scavenger hunt type ordeal where we're going to try and figure out how he's connected? And no, I don't think that was it at all. I think they were just kind of grasping at anything they could. I don't see how that will become relevant. That whole backstory was the same time as Mara Senior would have been around. That also made me think that there was relevancy there. Maybe there is. I kind of hope there is, because that felt like it was setting up for something. And when they got back to the funeral, like, he referenced the suicide as if his grandmother already knew, but how would she know if no one else was there looking at Sam's body? I feel like I missed something there, or something wasn't explained properly. And Sam had a nosebleed as well, and every time anyone had a nosebleed in this book, I was like, Mara, is it you? Is it you though? That was a bit fishy. But then it happened again with Goose right at the end when he fainted. He had a nosebleed. I wasn't even thinking Mara, and then when Noah was thinking about something afterwards, he, like, you could infer that what he meant was Mara. Is it you? Are you doing this? It was so, because it might not just be her. But it could be her though. Because maybe it could have just been a nosebleed. We don't know. Like, I'm so paranoid now every time everyone has a nosebleed. I do wonder why these particular people with gifts, is there a connection between them at all? We never even kind of got close to thinking about who's doing this. Because everyone kept suspecting Mara, and obviously we know it's not Mara. You'd think Stella would know it's not Mara because she could read her mind. The fact that Stella didn't like out and out believe Mara, and she can read her mind, makes me suspicious that maybe Mara is some way, somehow, something to do with this. Maybe it's completely unconscious. Maybe someone else is manipulating Mara and Mara's not even aware of it. The fact that Stella, who can read her mind, never was like completely at peace with it, weirds me out. Unless someone's like corrupting Stella's mind and like manipulating the way she thinks. We have no idea still. We're completely in the dark. They weren't trying to get to the bottom of these suicides, I think, with enough urgency, considering they kept happening. We didn't really kind of find very many clues. The people were obsessed with like the archives and stuff, and I was like, what about these real life people that you can probably look down their past? Noah said it a couple times. I was like, yes, why is no one listening to him? Because no one ever actually did that. We never looked into these people. I think if we gained more traction and like tried to figure out what's going on with these suicides a little bit more, I'd be more appeased with the plot. So a lot of us sitting around looking through the archives and reading these letters, but obviously we already know most of this information. This isn't new to us. And then them sitting around and kind of dealing with relationship baggage and trying to work together with Leo and Stella and her crew. It just felt like it was moving very slowly and not a lot was happening. He started keeping things from Mara. Like, he didn't talk to her about this whole solicitor ordeal and like his inheritance, and when he had all the stuff shipped over, he didn't tell her. And like about the professor, and like she doesn't know about his mother's letter or what the professor has in plan with him. And I hate that. Just constantly lying to each other and keeping secrets from each other. What are you doing? I'm like getting nervous that Noah's keeping things from Mara. Obviously, Mara's keeping crap ton from Noah as well, so never mind. It takes us ages to figure out what happened to Noah's dad, because we open up at his funeral and obviously he's so relevant in the retribution that I'm like, what happened? I thought he was going to be a player here. I thought they were going to have to be in this weird battle with David Shaw. Like, no. And he committed suicide, and I don't know about you, but that seemed really fishy to me. Plausible, but it felt like, could we investigate here? I'm sure we can. It also turns out they're taking like a gap year when Jamie said that you can apply to college early. In the end of Retribution, I thought they were actually going to apply to college early. Think about your future, guys. I'm sure they're counting on Jamie talking their way into college, I guess. Not thinking about the rest of their lives when they're going to have to get jobs and stuff. They're not exempt from these things just because they have powers. Also, they never ate. Did anyone else notice that? Like, we would be going through them for like days at a time, and Noah would never mention eating, and I got concerned. The periods of time we were going over were a lot of the time meal times, or it was like a whole day and he would just never mention it. And I don't know if it's just because like we can just assume they're eating, but the fact that he never mentioned it, maybe it's just because Noah doesn't care, maybe it's just because Noah doesn't eat, but it also seems like Mara never ate. How are you guys alive? So then we have the second suicide on the train platform. You can hear their thoughts, and this is new to him, and he can realise that they don't actually want to die. That's why this whole situation is so fishy. These people who are committing suicide, they don't want to die. So why are we not trying to stop these people from dying? Why are we not trying to help them? They want the help and we're not trying to help them. I mean, at that time they couldn't really help it, and I think Noah's right. Why did Leo and crew not try harder to stop it? I don't know. It was like he was right there, wasn't he? I thought he was right next to her. Maybe I'm confused. That's the first time we see Leo, and obviously that's setting up for us meeting him, and he puts the address on Noah's arm, which I didn't realise Mara couldn't see it. I was like, why are you not writing this down? Why is no one questioning it? Obviously they couldn't see it, that's why. But he didn't record it. He just kind of, I guess he was so drained with what happened, or at least tried to memorise. He has like a photographic memory, doesn't he? And then when they're in bed afterwards, he's talking about how he can't hear Mara like he normally would, and he, I think, mentioned it a couple times, and this got my interest because I was like, well, is this because of the suicides? Are they like draining him in some way, or is it affecting their powers in some way? Which come the end, actually, the fact that all their powers now have stopped working, that could lend into that theory. Or is it that Mara's draining him of his ability, which it could also be. Because it was slower, I found this to be less addictive than the original trilogy. The original trilogy, I just couldn't put them down. I did get to a certain point where things just meshed better for me. I had to get used to Mara seeming so weird to me. I didn't like her in this one, whereas I loved her in the first 2.5. I don't know if it's just because she's so cold, or she just felt really arrogant. And she was, because she owns her power in a way that I think she needs to have peace with it, but I don't know if the way she has peace with it is good. She feels like a loose cannon, and I think Noah recognises this, and I wonder if Jamie recognises this as well, because I don't think he completely trusts her. So he sees this third suicide, and he and Mara kind of have this argument, and she wanted them to tell Jamie. He didn't trust Jamie because Jamie's with Lukumi. They all just keep so many secrets from each other. They don't tell each other anything, and I want us all to be in this together, guys. Come on, let's start singing High School Musical. Let's hold hands and let's share. It'd be really beneficial for your relationships, but also for all of your well-being, to figure out what's going on here. I don't like the secrets, because if Lukumi's telling Jamie things, Jamie could have much more information than he's letting on. He could have a much better idea of what's going on than the other ones. Not that I don't trust Jamie, but I feel like they should all have a good idea of what's going on. But she was so insistent that Jamie should come, and I love the new relationship that we have with Noah and Jamie. I'm hoping to see more of that in Reckoning now that Mara's out of the picture. Like, it seemed very insistent, and I think Noah's making really good points why not to. The fact that you should respect him. You know, he died. Why should we parade a bunch of strangers in the house? And Mara's like, I don't care. So unnerved by her. And we get this envelope of paper which talks about David's death, his obituary, and poisoning in the police department. Now, the poisoning in the police department, it mentioned nosebleeds, and I was like, Mara, what did you do? I didn't put together that would be the repercussion of Noah come back to life. We knew that she'd done it, and we knew that people were going to die. I didn't know it was going to be that many people. I thought it might just be like maybe the one. And we also get his obituary. They blamed it on Stella and Leo. They said it wasn't them. I kind of believed them. So who's doing that? Maybe someone who's also got something to do with the suicides, I think, because we'd have too many loose threads going on otherwise. If not, then could it have been Lukumi? Oh, because Lukumi wants them apart, and I think he would do that anyway. Possible. Does Lukumi have anything to do with these suicides? I don't think so. I don't see why he would. But then who is it? It feels like this evil mastermind person who's out to get them all. Any of them could be targeted, in theory. Some of the things they were said, I don't know if it's because we're from Noah's perspective and he's so blunt about things and he would just like paraphrase things in weird ways. I'd get confused. Like at one point Mara said, okay, but who's killing us? And I was like, but no one's, you're there, you're talking, why? No one's killing you. She meant us as in like people with gifts, and it took me a while to figure that out. Now it also referenced like a boy who watched at one point, and I didn't really understand what he meant by that. Some of the things I think were just so blunt, it took me a minute to figure out. I found reading from Mara's perspective easier, which is weird because with Mara you don't trust her mental state. She's an unreliable narrator, whereas Noah I think is a lot more reliable. He sees things clearer, he's a lot more blunt and to the point with what he says. I just think so the way he paraphrases things confused me, but I wouldn't change that. Probably a meeting. So then we go and meet Leo, and Stella comes back, and I was so glad that Stella's back because she was our level-headed person in Retribution, other than Daniel. But Daniel's so fogged by Mara, and Mara doesn't tell Daniel any of this stuff. She doesn't tell anyone any of this stuff. If you see it, you see it, but if not, there's no way in how she's going to tell you. It worries me because Daniel thinks she's a better person than what she is. And up until Stella told Noah, so did he. Anyway, I'm so glad that she was back, and I'm so sad with how it played out, and I really, really hope she survives. And Goose is a Akara, which I was suspecting. He can make it so that people with powers can affect other people with powers, and I can see some cool battle stuff happening with Goose around. I'm hoping we get to play with that some more. When they were talking to Goose about, like, they asked him did he get sick, that's how they wanted to figure out if he was affected. When was it established that people get sick to trigger the powers? That must have happened in Retribution, but I didn't take that in. I assumed it was trauma because that's how it would happen to Mar, and that's how it happened seemingly to Noah, I think. I really like Leo's power. When I was reading Mardai Trilogy, I was like, well, if I could have powers, because it seems to be that you have to like affect other people. Like, I'd want to be able to manipulate what people could see, or like maybe manipulate their senses. And they were referencing another girl who can draw connections between people with powers, which seems like a bit of a lamer gift, but I'm assuming a useful one for them, obviously for their purpose, to try and recruit people. And what they seem to be doing seem to be good, but that's because I trust Stella. To prove to Goose that he could heal himself, he cut himself, and Mar flipped out, and I was so confused. Apparently he promised her never cut himself again. I don't remember that, and it really worried me how long it took to heal, and then even when it did, it never fully healed, like he still has it. Really worried me, and obviously now we know why. He can't heal things anymore. Is this permanent now? That is what I want to know, because it seems like she did her own research. Did she figure this out from all the stuff he had in that room? So in theory, we could then figure it out. Reading the stuff in the room very slowly, we're just getting like random letters. I wanted more information there as well. I think that would have helped me. Rather than just letters, we'd also read like documents and stuff about information, but I guess Noah didn't want to know. I'm so glad that he met with Stella. I was worried that he was going to be too loyal to Mara and wouldn't, and he didn't even tell Mara about it. Like, they're so fishy to one another. It's so scary. And she tells him everything. Thank God, because he knew none of it, and I didn't know that he knew none of it. I don't trust Mara. I'm just going to say it a bajillion times. I don't trust Mara. She mentioned how David was technically the first suicide, and I think she's implying it's got something to do with Mara, and that's kind of when I started thinking, does she have something to do with this? Like, I hadn't clocked it until then. I thought the nosebleed thing was weird, but I was like, she couldn't. Why would she make that guy hang himself? She could be doing this and making it look like suicide. Like, seems like something that's within the realm of her powers to do, because if we look at what happened at the end of the first book, that woman pulling the gun, and I believed that she did that because she was imagining a gun. She didn't actually have a gun. I don't see why she would be intentionally. She tells him about the subway. She phrased it that we have an option, and Mara always chose wrong. Like the fact that Kaz wasn't just dead, she was butchered. And when she came out from killing that guy, like, fine, it was in self-defense, but she came out covered in blood. I think Noah, he defended her to a point there where, like, that was a trigger point for her that was likely to set her off. The guy with the eye, the fact that she cut his eye out and then killed him. I didn't even think about the fact that she could kill him and then take out his eye. I feel like Jude maybe might have said that he needs to be kept alive first. I can't remember though. Maybe she just didn't plan on killing him, and then last minute she decided she was going to. Hal's of desperation and the guy in the toilets in the station, I assume that was just self-defense. But you can see how it can be interpreted that these are all very extreme reactions. She chose wrong every time. Like, she took pleasure out of it almost. I couldn't see where we were going with that, if I was supposed to be defending Mara or believing what Stella said. I was kind of on the verge, and I guess ultimately that is where Michelle wants us to be, because we're not really sure what's up with her yet. I don't think she's out and out bad, but I don't think she's out and out good either. Noah started second guessing her things, and there was a whole chapter after that where he reminisced on how they'd been lying to each other, and how it's so different because he'd kept things from her, but how different it feels to have her keep things from him because he's never been in this situation before. And he feels so left out because he wasn't there in Retribution. How Jamie and Mar have this bond, they're all traumatized together, and he can't relate to it. Dude, it wasn't your fault. You were drugged up and kidnapped. Like, you didn't exactly get off lightly. Then Stella goes missing. I don't like how Mara's like, psh, she's not missing. Psh, that is making you look guilty. Shut your mouth if nothing else. Think it, don't say it. And again, we didn't really try very hard to find her. We ended up going off and looking in the archives, which Noah kept saying was pointless. But we never actually did anything to actually try and find her, to look for her. Time is of the essence here. Chances are she's going to commit suicide soon, and we want to stop that. We know Stella, and even still, we weren't doing anything to try and stop it. Leo has a tattoo of the feather and the sword, and he said that his friend had it, someone who'd come and gone from the place, and it's about what it symbolizes. That friend who had come from and gone from the place, who also had the tattoo, must have known Lukumi. Someone must have known Lukumi somewhere, and it's so scary that these people getting this symbol tattooed on them, not even knowing what it means, not even knowing the fact that it's attached to Lukumi. And I wonder if, like, did Lukumi start the whole thing with the pendant? Or is that beyond his time? Like, is there some greater power here, some older system in place, and that Lukumi's just kind of borrowing it? I want to know more about this symbol and how it works. And then we find about Sophie, which I felt really bad for Daniel for, because that was a really sucky situation for him. He's one of our better characters, but she's the one who can see the connections. When Leo said, like, she hasn't revealed herself to you, I'm gonna let her do that, that made me think, like, do we already know her then? Because that's a weird thing to say if not. And it's crazy that when people go missing, they just go off the map for her. She can't sense them anymore. So that also suggests that something's going on with these people. The fact that they go missing and then they commit suicide, there's more tampering, I think, going on here than we can see. I think someone's blocking Sophie's vision. They're tampering with them in some way, somehow. So that to me suggests that it's more than just Mara. It's someone else at work here. I'm thinking people who have gifts that can purposely do this kind of stuff. Likely, I think more than one person. I think it's too much to just be one person, unless one person who's super crazy powerful. And she can't feel Noah, can't sense Noah. And I at first thought it was just Noah, but then something they referenced later made it sound like it was also Jamie. She said that she couldn't sense Jamie, but then it sounded like there was a but there. One day she could sense Jamie all of a sudden. I don't know. If she can't sense Noah and Jamie, A, what does that mean for Noah and Jamie? What makes them different? And B, she can sense Mara. The way that Noah was spinning it made it sound like she could only sense the people who were gonna probably commit these suicides, like they're linked to that, which doesn't make sense to me because that's not been going on long enough. I'm assuming she's also connected with people who haven't died. I want that cleared up more. Why can't she sense Noah and maybe Jamie as well? That felt very murky to me. So Daniel and Noah go back to the archives, and Daniel brings up again the whole originals situation, and this came up in the end again. Stella believes that Noah and Stella are the originals and everyone else are just copies of them. I'm assuming we're going to find more of this out because, again, it's all very obscure. This was something that was never really fully fleshed out from the first trilogy. How could they be copies? And how can there be originals? Because copies would suggest something artificial's gone on there. And it's weird that Jamie said we'll be seeing her again, like Daniel reported it back to Noah, that he'd said that back when he got the letter. It feels like Jamie definitely knows more than what he's letting on, and it's freaking me out. We know more about Noah's mother. She was an abandoned baby. We don't really know her parents. Her adopted parents were killed in a car crash, and I loved seeing the similarities between his mother and Noah. I feel like he's a lot like his mother. Then we have the whole Mara being drugged up because she was strengthening her powers. One, she doesn't need her powers strengthened. I don't really know if I want her to be in control of them or not, which is better of the two scenarios, because I really don't trust Mara. It's crazy how she's like all drugged up and like high off of it. I want to know more why that works, how that works, what were they doing to get her to strengthen her powers, presumably not killing someone. So what was going on there? How do they do that? How does that work? He interrogates her about the scalpel when he can, and he thinks it's the same one that she used to kill Kells. I think Mara explained that wasn't what's going on, and she just has it to make her feel safe because it was the only weapon she had for a long time. I don't think she needs that though, because she herself is a weapon. I want to know if she can torture people without killing them, because it feels like that also should be within the means of her gift. She should be able to do that without actually having to kill them, because that would be helpful, because then she could like torture them a little bit so she can get away, and then when she leaves it will wear off. They won't actually have to die for it. Again, whether she should actually do that or not though, I don't know. That whole scene with the scalpel was so hard and weird, and Mara, pull yourself together. She thought it was a game, and Noah's like freaking out on the inside. We go back to Mrs. Shaw, as in like Simon Shaw's wife, the one who raised Mara Senior, and I did feel bad for her, and I did wonder in the original trilogy like what came of her after this. And it was nice reading that, and it was nice knowing that deep down she still loved Mara Senior, and so it was really sad. I'm presuming they never saw each other again. I feel bad for the woman. She's gone through a lot, and she was being manipulated by Lukumi inadvertently without her knowing a lot. So I can see why they don't trust Lukumi. I also think he knows a lot. If nothing else, tend to be on his team just to get information from him. I mean, if Jamie's doing it, but then Jamie thinks he's not Lukumi's tool, and Noah's worried that he'll be sculpted to his tool without even realising it. It's a tough one. See, now he's put the next on, so I'm assuming he just wants to get to the bottom of this now. And then we have the part where everything just goes to hell. Felicity dies in the archives. Can't be a coincidence that it was in the archives. Daniel went back, hoping he took some photographs of some stuff, and we have maybe just anything. Obviously, we have their own files. I don't know how far that'll get them. I do kind of agree with Daniel and Mara and Leo that we should look through it. I think there could be clues in there and there could be important information if nothing else. I also agree with Noah that maybe now might not be the time. I don't think that was the best way forward in terms of figuring out the suicides. And now that they're all gone anyway, I'm assuming they weren't needed to figure this out, because I'm assuming we're going to figure it out without them. It's annoying that we don't have them anymore, and it does like make Mara look more guilty, it makes Noah look more guilty. I wonder what the intention was behind the archives, whether it was just putting them behind in terms of they have less information now, or whether it was to make people look more guilty, what the reasoning was behind destroying the archives. And we have Stella's live stream thing. She just sounds so unhinged. I don't like the fact that it's in the public eye. It doesn't seem like she said anything too incriminating. Like, it was eerie how she was obviously talking to Mara and their group in general and Noah. And I felt so bad for her and can't help but blame Mara a little bit. I wonder if the time apart built Mara up in her head. Jamie referenced at one point in Retribution that Stella was scared of Mara, and I kind of found it funny at the time. But now I see why. It wasn't just her ability, it was the choices she was making. It was more than that, it was deeper. So I'm interested in seeing how that plays out, the live stream, how nons will react. We have that whole conversation with Stella when she's threatening to jump off of the bridge. Mara tells her to. She's just like, well, go on then. What are you thinking? If she dies, it's Mara's fault. I don't even care. It's her fault. Why would she goad her? And she doesn't even feel bad about it. I wonder if Mara telling Stella to jump was goading, or whether her power was in any way affecting Stella there. Very infuriating, and I really, really, really hope that Stella doesn't die. It was so promising when Noah could feel her heartbeat under the water. We jump back to Noah first meeting Mara and hearing about her. I, at this point, had no feelings, because I was like, no, it's what you can probably do better. I think I'm going to need to read from her perspective again at some point. The last book has both of their names in the title. I've kind of got this theory that we'll hear from her perspective in that one, and I'm still hoping that's the case, because I think it will humanize her a little bit, and if nothing else, we'll remember who she is deep down, and there might be more reason to what she's doing than what she's saying. She doesn't explain herself very well, I don't think. Their powers have been cut. I want to know why. I wonder if that's got something to do with Stella's suicide, or if someone else has done it there. I wonder how long this is going to last for. Scary stuff. And then we have the end scene with Noah and Mara. She just kind of comes out and tells him, I called your dad. And she'd been keeping it this whole time. I wonder if Jamie knows. I wonder if anyone knows. I wonder how she did it. How did she manage to get away for a long enough period of time? Just how did she do all of it? She was worried about her family, she said, because he threatened Daniel. I guess she's worried that he'll come after her family some more, so it makes sense. I still don't like the fact that she did that though. She also reveals that Noah can't heal anymore. Again, we need to know more. Noah's, I think he's just in a complete state of shock. I don't think he cares about his dad. I'm more so, he's been worried about her this whole time ever since he had that conversation with Stella, and he's been noticing all these little things, starts to second guess her a lot. I think it was just too much, and then the fact that she's been keeping such big secrets, she changed more than he could accept. Mara says that she would have to kill that amount of people to save him again because he can't heal anymore. He just snaps. I don't really fully understand why he says what he says, because I don't think he means it. I can only assume he was just overwhelmed by everything that had been leading up to this point, and then those revelations. It's also unnerving that she left when Stella jumped off the bridge. That weirded me out. I'll have to do it again, because you don't feel anymore, and it's not temporary. I've been reading up. She looks up at the trunks. Your father's right about some things. Not this, I say. Not ever this. Not ever again. I'm not apologising for saving your life. It's my life. And how many times have you tried to end it? Would you let me die? She asks, but I'm not ready for it, so I say no. But I never want to see you again. And then we have the chapter afterwards, and he's just kind of reeling in it all, and he's thinking about Lukumi, the necklace on, fasten the chain around my neck, I won't quit the game, I'll destroy the fucking board. Lots of emotion and lots of things happening so fast. And then obviously we have the epilogue. It's called The Meeting of Two Eternities. The slow revelation that it's Mara Senior. She's not dead. She didn't commit suicide. She's alive and well, and she's worried about someone they both love. I can only assume that being Mara. Big things are coming, I think. I'm excited to dive more into this. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting, good stuff going on. I just want to go into it more in more depth. I want to start figuring things out. Hopefully with the suicides, even if we're not actively going around trying to stop the suicides, I want to figure out what's going on with them. Oh, there's hints that Mara's at risk. So do we think trying to save the person we both love, do we think Mara's at risk being one of the suicides, and that's what they're going to go about doing in the next one, trying to prevent Mara's suicide, figure out what's going on with the suicides in general? As long as we make more headway in the next one, I think I'm going to like it better. I wonder if Mara's going to be in the next one at all. I imagine we'll spend most of the book without her, kind of hopefully with Goose and Jamie, maybe Daniel, figuring things things out, and then come the end, I reckon she'll come back in at the end and we'll probably leave off with a build up to the next book. I hope. That would be cool, I think. Still enjoyed it though. I really love these characters and I like being in this world, and it was definitely worth the read for me at least. That is everything I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, evening / night. My name's Jade. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye! But it wasn't...